Professor R. Ashokamani, Director, Research and Development, Dhanalakshmi College of Engineering, Tambaram, Chennai. He is former professor and head of the department, Physics, Anna University, Chennai. He is presently guiding 3 research scholars. He has more than 44 years of UG and PG teaching experience and 33 years of research experience. 14 research scholars have obtained doctorate under his guidance in the area of material science and solid-state physics. He has more than 150 research publications to his credit, of which 90 are in international journals. He has authored a book on solid-state physics, which is an international publication. He has participated in several international conferences, both in India as well as in foreign countries such as USA, UK, France, Germany, Italy, and Yugoslavia. He has been a guest scientist at ICTP, Italy, several times. He is a fellow and treasurer of Tamil Nadu Academy of Sciences.
In this lecture number 14, the contents will be as follows: Dulong and Petit's law, Einstein's model, and Debay's theory. In the previous lectures, we have been trying to understand the thermal property, namely the specific heat of solids. This has been one of the long standing problems. It was observed by Dulong and Petit that the specific heat of all solids, they were found to be nearly equal to 6 calories per mole per degree, and this is the experimental observation. They gave the law, and the classical theory, as I told you in the previous lecture, it assumes that the solid contains n atoms, it is equivalent to 3n oscillators. The classical oscillator will have an energy kT, and so the energy of the solid will be 3n kT, and therefore the derivative of this energy with respect to temperature, that is the specific heat, will be equal to 3R. So, the Dulong and Petit's law simply states Cv, that is the specific heat of all solids, should be equal to 3R. Now, this was incapable of explaining the variation of specific heat with respect to temperature. Now, what happens is, what Dulong and Petit told was correct as long as you keep the solid at room temperature or at higher temperatures, but at low temperatures the heat capacity falls off, and the reduction in the heat capacity as a function of temperature could not be explained on the basis of the classical theory. Therefore, it was left to Einstein to give an explanation. The important point to be remembered is Einstein was one of the first persons to introduce quantum mechanical ideas into solid state physics. Every atom in a crystalline solid, if you have got atoms like this, at any given temperature the atoms will be vibrating, even at 0 Kelvin they will be vibrating. And so, what he did was he took into account the energy that we possessed by each and every atomic oscillator as given by Max Planck. That is, you write E n is equal to nh nu. The other important points which are to be remembered are, what Einstein did was, number 1, he assumed all atoms to vibrate with the same frequency, that is a very important point, and secondly, they are independently vibrating. Okay, you should remember these 2 points. All atoms are vibrating with the same frequency in a given solid, and these oscillators are independent oscillators. They are not coupled to each other, right? They are independent oscillators. And I told you in the last lecture, the variation of heat capacity with respect to temperature, it had a exponential fall according to Einstein's theory. The expression which he obtained, I showed in the last lecture, the fall was more rapid than what it should be. You see the Einstein model, the continuous line gives the heat capacity calculated using Einstein's theory, the so called Einstein model, but on the contrary experimental points indicate the values for copper, silver, silicon and diamond as a function of temperature, right. How the heat capacity falls as a function of temperature, that is shown by the dots and the squares, circles and so on, that they are the experimental points. The experimental points agree very well with what you call as the Debye model. So, we have to go beyond Einstein model. Einstein model has the natural problem, it is insufficient to explain the experimental observations. So, you have to go to Debye model. What is the work that was done by the great man Peter Debye? What Debye thought was to consider the solid as a continuum. Instead of considering the solid as if they are made up of atoms, instead of individual atoms being considered, he considered a solid as a continuum. Supposing I have a rubber band or a thread, I have a piece of thread and I can make the thread to vibrate, and you can have one loop, the whole string you can have one loop, or as I told you in the previous lecture, you would have done Kunst tube experiment in which you can have either in the same length L you can have one loop or two loops and so on. And so, when you consider a solid as a continuum, you can talk of elastic waves or possible modes of vibrations. What I mean by this is you can have one loop or two loops or three loops, the number of stationary waves that you obtain in a solid can vary, or in other words, instead of a single frequency, what Debye talked about was a continuous frequency spectrum. That means the solid has the sound waves or the elastic waves that are passing through a solid have all possible frequencies. And again at this point itself I would like to tell that Debye was unaware of how to have the maximum frequency. Let us go on to the Debye model. So, Debye realized that the solid should be treated as a continuum instead of looking at the various atoms as was done by Einstein. So, in 1912 he started the discussion on the vibration modes of a continuous solid. Before you go to a continuous three dimensional solid, as I told you, you look at a string, a one dimensional solid, right. So, you start with a string of length L. So, it is a one dimensional string and you write down the equation for the wave propagation. The wave equation corresponding to the one dimensional string will go as dou square u by dou x square is equal to 1 by c square dou square u by dou t square, where u stands for the displacement of the wave and x is the point at which you measure the displacement and c is the velocity of the wave. Okay. This is what you are having in a case of a one dimensional string, and the displacement measured at a given point and at a given instant of time t, you have a one dimensional string and the displacement, you know, you have nodes, anti nodes and so on, and so the displacement can have any value. So, the displacement u that is measured at a given point x at a given time t will be equal to, that is the solution of the above equation, right. The solution will be a times, that is the maximum displacement, or what is called the amplitude, sine into n pi x by L, where L is the length of the one dimensional string, cos 2 pi times nu n into t. The nu suffix n refers to the frequency of the wave that is being propagated through the one dimensional string, and as I told you, t the time at which the display has been measured, and a is the amplitude and so on. And so, this is what you have. The more important thing is n is a positive integer. Now, we are going to generalize it to a 3-dimensional case. This is for a 1-dimensional string, right. Solids are not 1-dimensional objects, they are 3-dimensional things. This particular thing should be extended to a 3-dimensional case. Now, before that we will go through the wavelengths and the frequencies of the possible vibrations. Now, nu suffix n refers to the different frequencies, and so the possible frequencies that you will have will be lambda n, the wavelength that you will be having will be 2L by n. So, n will be an integer. So, the fundamental wavelength lambda will be, when n is 1, that will be 2L. If n is 2, it will be lambda will be simply L. If n is 3, then you will have corresponding wavelength. What I am trying to tell you is the different wavelengths or the different frequencies that you can think of in a 1-dimensional string are given by this expression for wavelength and the other expression for the frequency. As I told you, you have take a 1-dimensional string and you can have either 1 loop or 2 loops and 3 loops and so on. So, if you have got 1 loop, the entire length will be equal to the length of 1 loop. If you have got 2 loops, then the length of 2 loops will be equal to the length of the string. Now, therefore, the frequency will keep on increasing and the wavelength will decrease and so on. Now, therefore, the possible wavelengths will be, as I told you, when n is 1, the maximum wavelength lambda will be equal to 2L. If n is 2, the wavelength comes down, the frequency will go up. So, the frequencies will be C by lambda n or equal to C times n divided by 2L, where n is the integer. In this 1-dimensional case, each integer n corresponds to a discrete frequency. The important point to be remembered is you have nu n, this is a frequency that corresponds to n, right. A particular frequency, particular n value, n is 1, that corresponds to a particular frequency, n equal to 2, that corresponds to a different frequency, n is 3 corresponds to some other frequency. So, instead of a single frequency which was thought of by Einstein, now we have got different frequencies, right, different frequencies with which the wave can travel through the medium, the elastic wave or the sound wave or whatever the you have a 1-dimensional string. In the 1-dimensional string, the possible vibrational frequencies are given by the expression of this kind, right. Nu n will be equal to C n divided by 2L. In this 1-dimensional case, each integer corresponds to a discrete frequency of vibration. Then you ask the question, how many modes will be there in a frequency range d nu? You take nu and nu plus d nu. If you take the frequency along the y axis, you have got nu here, d nu will be here. In this frequency interval, how many modes of vibration will be there? So, your dn will be from this, you have got n will be equal to 2L by nu n, right, 2L by or 2L by C divided by, okay, this is a kind of thing will be lambda n and so on. So, you can write dn to be equal to 2L by C into d nu, right. You have got nu here and n here. So, dn will be the number of modes of vibrations that you can have in a small frequency interval d nu. This is all what you have to learn about the 1-dimensional case. Then we pass on to a 3-dimensional case. Now, why should you go to 3-dimensional? Because solids are 3-dimensional objects. Now, therefore, you generalize the equation that you had in this form. I told you about the possible modes of vibrations or how many modes of vibrations you can have in a string. You take a thread and how many modes you can have in a small frequency interval. That is generalized to a 3-dimensional elastic continuum, a 3-dimensional solid. You consider a solid as a elastic medium, like a 3-dimensional, a piece of rubber, right. So, now you generalize it, dou square u by dou x square plus dou square u by dou y square, dou square u by dou z square, that will be equal to 1 by c square into dou square u by dou t square. Okay. The possible standing wave solutions are whatever that you had earlier, instead of sin n pi x by L, what I am going to do now in the 3-dimensional case, I will have n x, n y, n z. I told you that n is a positive integer. Similarly, now the boundary condition requires that your n x, n y, n z, all of them should be positive integers. Okay? That is the important point. N x, n y, n z should all be positive integers. Again, another point is, for every n that you have got here, it refers to a discrete frequency. Every n refers to or corresponds to a discrete frequency. Now, I am going to have n x, n y, n z. Okay? All of them should be integers. So, now you move on to 3-dimensional case, the solution you are having wherein you find n x, n y, n z. Okay? Now, all of them should be integers. So, let us now write down the solution that you want to have that connects n x, n y, n z to the possible frequencies, right. You have got 4 times L square nu square by c square, where L is the length of the solid. You can have a cubical solid where L will be the length of each side, n x, n y, n z are the integers, and nu is the frequency of the wave that can travel through the solid. Okay. Substituting the above solution as you had earlier, substituting this solution here, you get this equation. Okay. This is the equation of central importance. The reason why I am telling these equations importance, for every n x, n y, n z, there will be a particular frequency, right. So, you can have n x 1, n y 1, n z 1, then you can substitute that, then L is a constant. Okay. L is the length of the cube. So, c is the velocity of the wave. If you assume the velocity of the wave should be a constant, the velocity of the wave, c is a constant, L is a constant, and here you got L, pi and so on. Therefore, the only variable is nu, and so there is a connection between the frequency nu and your n x, n y, n z. Now, what I would like to impress upon you is the fact that n x, n y, n z will have positive integral values, positive integers, okay, and for a given set n x, n y, n z, it may be 1 1 1 or 2 1 1 or 2 3 4, n x can be 2 3 4, and by assigning various values for n x, n y, n z, you are getting a particular frequency. So, what I am going to do now, I am going to generate what is called a integer space. Can you tell me at this point whether you have come across such an integer space in solid state physics elsewhere? Now, when I am going to talk about density of states with respect to energy from the particle in a box problem, one calculates what is called the density of states, how many energy levels will be there in the valence band or in the conduction band. In the case of semiconductors, I will be using an integer space. The same concept will be used. I am trying to tell you the connection between what you find in the chapter on semiconductor physics or semiconductor electronics and what you read in the problem of the specific heat. So, the integer space that I am going to generate is common to both these things. So, it may be there in other areas as well. So, let me now generate the integer space. I have got origin, and this point may be 1 1 in the 2-dimensional space. Obviously, this is 1 here, and again you are going through 1 along the y direction, there is a ny here, the nx here, nz here. So, in 2-dimensional space these go through the one point here, right. There is another point here. What are the coordinates or what are the integers which correspond to this? That will be 1 here, 1 here, right. When you nx is 1, okay, ny is 1. So, if you take this point, what are the values for nx and ny? Nx is 1, 2, nx is 2 and ny is 1. The point I want to emphasize is every point that I have in this diagram corresponds to a discrete frequency because of the relation, right. Having 1 1 or 2 1, that corresponds to a particular frequency. So, every set of integers which I assign, every set of integers nx, ny, nz, it corresponds to a particular well defined frequency. I am going to calculate how many possible modes of vibrations or how many nus I can have in a interval. Suppose this corresponds to a frequency nu and this corresponds to a frequency nu plus d nu. This range corresponds to the frequency interval d nu, or in other words, in the length scale it corresponds to d, or the frequency domain, this corresponds to nu and this corresponds to nu plus d nu. Okay. So, in this range d nu, how many modes are there? As I told you, every point corresponds to a particular mode. What I should do now, in the integer space, how many points are there between nu and nu plus d nu? And not only that, you should see that I should not count all the points. I should see that nx, ny, nz, all of them should be, whether ny can be negative or nz can be negative. I told you initially the boundary conditions demand that nx, ny, all of them should be positive. There should be positive integers. Now, therefore, you should look at only this region, right. In the 2-dimensional space, you have got your nx is positive, this is a positive quadrant, right. If you go here, your nx becomes negative. If you go here, both nx and ny will become negative. If you go here, ny will become negative, right. Nx will be positive, but I need my nx, ny should be positive integers in the 2-dimensional space. If you go to 3 dimensions, it is a sphere. What I am showing here, they are circles, right. Now, you should visualize a sphere, a football like thing, and I have a frequency here nu. All the points on this the sphere will correspond to frequency nu, and I have a bigger sphere. This range of width dr corresponds to the modes of vibrations which lie between nu and nu plus d nu. So, what should I do now? I have to find out how many points are there in 3-dimensional space, in what volume. The frequency, the modes of vibrations will lie in the frequency range d nu, and that is equivalent to dr. Supposing have a point here, 1 centimeter separated by 1 centimeter, this point lies here, another point lies here, another point lies here, another point lies here. You have got 1, 2, 3, 4, and so in this you have got one person sitting here, one person sitting here, one person. So, every 1 centimeter a person can sit, right. Assume that in 1 centimeter you have got a person sitting here, another person sitting here. Depending upon 3-dimensional volume, in every unit volume there will be one positive set of integers, right. So, this point should be understood properly, and so you have to take the volume, unit volume here such that nx, ny, nz, all of them will be positive. In 2 dimensions, nx, ny will be positive in 1/4 of the quadrant, right, is the region in which nx, ny will be positive. In 3 dimensions, it will be 4 pi r square dr will give you the volume of the annular ring. 4 pi r square dr will give you the volume of the annular ring. Out of this volume, how much will be assigned or how much can be considered so that your nx, ny, nz, all of them will be positive. Only 1/8 of the total volume should be considered because only for that volume Nx, Ny, Nz, all of them will be positive. The number of points which are lying between R and R plus dr, for which Nx, Ny, Nz are all positive, is given by 1/8 of the volume of the spherical shell of thickness dr. This is what I showed just now. So, you have to consider 1/8 4 pi r square dr, that is the volume. Not only the volume, for every unit volume you can have 1 meter, a person is comfortably sitting, another meter, 1 meter. So, they are all equispaced points, but therefore, the volume will be equivalent to the number of frequencies, because for every unit volume you will be having 1 point, right. 1 point means 1 finite frequency. So, this volume that I have calculated now, that corresponds to the number of possible modes of vibrations I can think of. So, the number of possible modes of vibrations Z nu du nu stands for or represents the number of modes of vibrations you can have between nu and d nu, or between r and r plus dr. The number of points that you can have will be the same. It is 1/8 times 4 pi times r square. Your r square will be so much, okay. Your dr will be given like this, right. These are the r square is 2l nu by c, obviously r square. From r square you can get r, and from r you will be getting dr, because the only variable is nu, right, d nu is here, right. Now, substitute your r square and dr here. What do you have? 1/8 times 4 pi r square dr. So, you write 1/8 4 pi times r square is here, okay. 4 l square nu square by c square, dr is here 2 l by c into d nu. That comes out to be 4 pi times the volume L cube will be the volume of the solid piece divided by c cube into nu square d nu. This gives the total number of possible modes of vibrations that you can think of in a 3-dimensional continuous solid. This is what Debye did. This expression is of importance. Now, you ask a question, what is the energy possessed by the solid? With every the frequency associate the energy. So, I have to write down the waves I am talking about can be both transverse and longitudinal. So, all these things are to be taken into account when I am calculating the energy of the solid. Let me now summarize as to what we have learned from this lecture. Einstein attempted to explain the variation of heat capacity with respect to temperature by assuming atoms to be independent oscillators vibrating with the same frequency. The variation at low temperatures followed an exponential law in the case of Einstein's model, quite at variance with the experimental observation as he showed earlier. So, Debye considered the solid as a continuum and calculated the various possible modes of vibrations. Let me now pass on to the question session. What is Dulong and Petit's law? The second question is whether Debye's theory was able to explain the variation of heat capacity with temperature. Question number 3, what is the essential difference between Einstein model and Debye model? With this we come to the end of this lecture. The rest of the things we will see in the lectures to come. Thank you.